Out Comes the Sun with Mariel Hemingway and Melissa Yamaguchi. Out Comes the Sun compassionately helps you navigate mental wellness practices that you can apply to your daily life. And we tell your story. And now, Mariel Hemingway and Melissa Yamaguchi.
Welcome, everybody, to Out Comes the Sun Radio. I am here with my brilliant co-host, Melissa Yamaguchi. I'm Mariel Hemingway, and today we get to talk about a show that I'm actually fascinated by. And it's the kind of fascination that when you're irritated in traffic and you see people and you're stopped and you can't figure it out, and then you realize there's been a wreck and that everybody is looking. I feel a little bit like the people looking when I watch this show called Succession. Okay, I don't know if any of you have watched this on, I think it's HBO. Is
Max?
it not? Yeah, it's on Max. And it's a brilliantly written show. It is so, you talk about vitriol a lot, but this is the most vitriolic show. If they have snake venom coming out of their mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Speak to each other.
Vipers.
But brilliant in some ways. So let me set it up a little bit. This is a family that is sort of loosely based on another family that we all probably know in the world of media or whatever, right? But they're big money, big billions and billions of dollars. And the patriarch of the family is like he's been around the world and he is vicious. He's a vicious businessman, and he has three sons and a daughter. And they are basically pitting up against each other to win position to gain, to be whoever's going to succeed their father. And I won't tell you exactly what happens in case you haven't watched it, because you don't want to know. But it's just incredible the craziness of how human beings react. And I suppose for everybody who thinks that money is the root of all evil, this is the show that makes that absolutely true. I don't want to believe that, but boy, this show makes you think, yep, I think it might be that.
It's money and the connection to greed. So I believe that greed is the biggest challenge, is the biggest problem that ails us. And so unfortunately, if one has not been given a foundation that teaches you how to not lean into greed, then yeah, money can be damaging. The thing that you and I were recently visiting someone, and we talked about the show Succession, and our guests at our luncheon were saying, "Oh, I hate that show. I can't watch that show. And the language is so vile and it's so unnecessary." And I agree. Sometimes people speak in this way, but then you and I turned to you because a light went off in my head, and I realized we've got to talk about this on the show, because this show, Succession, is really addressing mental illness. And you see one of the sons who has this snarky, sarcastic, caustic wit, and everything you realize is coming from a place of hurt, because he never had a connection to his mother, and he has a relationship with an older woman. Again, this is a connection to lack of attention from his mother. And right. So you and I almost left we were still with our guest, but we began, you could see the two of us going back and forth like, oh, and the daughter and this, and we were identifying the mental illness and how astutely it has been handled on the show without ever addressing it. No one ever says, oh, by the way, so-and-so's dealing with this. They don't even bring in a therapist to talk about it. They do gently with marital disputes, but they don't have it addressed. No. The dripping armchair psychosis that I'm making every night. I'm going, that's this. And it's amazing, isn't it?
Well, and because I know that these writers who are really really bright, obviously, have done deep research into these characters. I mean, it's brilliant. It really is brilliantly written. Yes, it can get very nasty and the language is harsh. But what it reminds you is that when you don't deal with mental, I don't even want to call it mental, when you don't deal with the trauma in your life, when you don't deal with the fact that you're an adult, and if you come from privilege, maybe it just means you feel you don't have to pay attention, or you've been enabled to behave any way that you want and nobody's ever stopped you because it's kind of like celebrity. There's so many times when nobody calls them out on their bad behavior because we think, oh, well, or well, we think, it's not my place to do that. Or if you're on the payroll, do you say that, right? Do you do that? And there's a lot of that in this, but the mental health conversation is huge in this. And you're right, because the younger son really, I mean, he's incredibly bright and he does say the most, and it does come from hurt. And he has a relationship with an older woman that works with the dad and all that stuff. And it's highly inappropriate, but it's because he's filling up something that is a hole. It's really well done. And then there's, the daughter who, and she feels like the woman who's being overlooked, right? She feels like the daughter who maybe my dad likes me, or maybe he just placates me. I mean, there's so many.
And she doesn't trust the good old boy system.
No,
that's been in place for so long, right?
Yeah, right. And then the older son, who's kind of on the path to a totally narcissistic existence, but he's kind of gone to therapy, so he has a piece of what might make him a better person, right? But not totally. Like
he regurgitates what he's heard, and he's not putting it to action.
Yeah.
And then there's the oldest son, right?
Yes, that's the oldest son.
The oldest son who's running the oldest son who's trying everything within his grasp, grabbing every low-hanging fruit that he can grab to try to get his dad to look at him, because the younger three siblings are from a different mother. So then you have that dynamic of the half-brother. And then every once in a while, when there's some snarky argument, the youngest of all four children will say, yeah, well, we don't even have, you're from different stock, as though he's not the same. And so any person who's listening who has had a half brother or sister, or if you have felt that, you recognize it right away. Like, oh yeah, I know what that is. You're right. This show is so complex in the greed factor. We could check mark every single thing we talk about in societal ailment, whether it's from PTSD, whether it's from abandonment, whether it's from whatever, right?
Massive narcissism, gaslighting,
adultery. They gaslight. Yeah, they could light the world on fire with all the gaslighting. And then you got adultery that comes in. Oh, yeah. And hedonism, right? This hedonistic. Well, I'm not going to take that. Where's the limo? I'm not driving out there to the meeting. Where's the helicopter? It's insane, right?
Insane. I mean, even to the point where they're ordering. I mean, it's what you imagine uber rich people with no conscience would do. They basically do all of it. Everything that you think they might do, they do. They're flying to the Caribbean to have lunch with their mother, who they don't really like, but they're showing up, and then they don't like the food. And so they fly back, and, it's just, you're like, wow.
Wow. You know what?
When money is of value, and you do whatever you want, you see that the problems don't disintegrate. You just see that if you don't deal with the problems, they actually become bigger.
Oh,
sort of
three-headed snake,
banded, weird, and you influence many, many people, which is crazy because they also are in media. So.
They're the people that you love to hate. right?
Yes.
They're the people that we love to hate because they're just, every attachment that we have for people that we don't care for has been attached to this family. And it's a good show. It's a good break from your own reality, or maybe it helps you understand some things that are going on in your life a little bit better. Fantastic writers. Wow.
I love to hate the show. That's kind of what I say. So if anybody's interested in a very well-written show with a lot of language, so I warn you in advance, get to Max or HBO Max and watch it. It's called Succession. It's interesting. Hey, don't go anywhere. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio. We are going to have wonderful guests today. Speaking of mental illness from a highly different perspective, but it will be very enlightening for you to listen. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. As a mental health advocate and author, I love books. Books have the capacity to inspire, educate, transform, and ultimately help readers all over the world. So if you want to publish your book, or if you need help writing your story, I highly recommend Mindstir Media, rated the #1 best book publisher around the country. Mindstir Media can help you no matter where you are in the book writing or publishing process. Go to mindstirmedia.com to learn more and schedule a consultation.
Teens4TeensHelp is an online mental health organization created for teens by teens. By the teens sharing personal stories of recovery, we help teenagers and young adults overcome their mental health and emotional challenges. So important. They also provide encouragement, coping strategies, education, and resources to other teens. See the recent videos on Teen Talk on their website about where teens talk about grief, loss, and heartbreak. The teens interview certified grief recovery specialist Jennifer Byra. If you or someone you know is dealing with anxiety, depression, or any other challenges, go to Teens4TeensHelp. That's teens, 4, teenshelp.org. That's teens, 4, teenshelp.org. You are not alone. There is help and there is hope.
And about Jeff was a film and video producer and director. He has helped many Fortune 500 companies market, sell, and explain their products and services. He has taught at Columbia College of Hollywood, written the book A Parent's Guide to Anorexia. Jeff is currently the executive director and co-founder of a nonprofit, Teens4TeensHelp, along with his wife, Kathy, and his daughter, Kara.
Now let's talk about Kathy. Kathy is a licensed acupuncturist. I can use you all day and all night, Kathy, and has been in practice for over 25 years. She and Jeff have 2 children, one at UC Davis, where my niece went, and one at Sacramento State. She believes in the ripple effect and knows that by improving the life of one person, you impact many, and has seen this firsthand in her medical practice.
And about Kara is one of the co-founders of Teens4TeensHelp. I love this organization so much, and I'll tell you why later. She's a recent graduate of UC Davis from the honors program with a degree in psychology and plans to continue her education to receive her doctorate. She's the co-founder and senior editor of the undergraduate psychology journal, the Aggie Transcript. So, look, first of all, please just tell us your story. How did you come to this? And how did you come to this?
We can all talk about it. We came to it honestly.
In a nutshell.
Why don't you start?
Well, yeah, it's kind of weird to talk about Kara while she's here, but it's all of our story. And in 9th grade, Kara had to go into a residential treatment program for anorexia and depression and anxiety. And that kind of started the journey of, recovery and healing. And it was an arduous journey, I will say, for all of us, and especially her. And then something happened when she was in treatment. I'm going to let Kara tell that part of the story, which was really how this whole thing got started.
Wow. Please, Kara, tell us.
So when I was at my last treatment center, it was an intensive outpatient. I was asked if I would speak at a high school for their mental health awareness week and share my story. And I did so, and I was invited back the following year. And I was so anxious, I hardly remember what I said. And I was really intimidated going there. And after I spoke to a class, I had someone come up to me and he asked for a hug. And I was pretty taken aback, but I was like, okay, like, of course. And he had told me that when I came the first year, he was incredibly suicidal. But after hearing me talk, he decided to get help, and it changed everything for him, which just, really touched me, because my whole goal of speaking was to try to prevent others from having to go through all of the struggles and treatment that I did.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's face it, you speaking to your peers is the only way that people are going to understand. Kids don't want to talk to adults about their problems. It's nerve-wracking. You feel judged. You feel scared. I understand. I understand food issue. I wasn't anorexic, but I had a major food issue when I was a kid, and it went on for years, and it tormented me. And I wish there was somebody, my age at the time that could have helped me or been through something, or that I could have talked to. But especially that was back in the late 70s. I felt so isolated and alone at that time. But I just so appreciate what you're doing, because you and your parents, because they support you in this and they're helping make it something powerful and palpable and effective. But I so appreciate that your voice is really, because kids need to hear from kids, and they need to be listened to. And I think you can speak to this more than anyone, is that do you feel that kids your age just feel isolated and unheard?
Yeah, definitely. Speaking for myself and for my peers in treatment, yeah, I would say we certainly feel isolated and unheard, and are unaware of how common mental health issues are, which makes it even more difficult to talk about and to understand that, like, what you're going through isn't completely atypical.
No, exactly. And here's the thing. Everybody who's listening right now, I want you to realize that, mental health issues aren't just the commonly known depression or even suicidal tendency. It's a plethora of things. We speak to often to people who have addiction problems. That's a mental health issue. Mm-hmm. Addiction is a mental health issue. Body, food, anorexia, all these different things, all of them. They're all part of this mental health. That's why we've got to bring it all together and allow people to realize that this problem is vast, and we also have to get bored. I think that, today it was brought up something about insurance companies and how we don't support those things, like the mental health problems. We're not supporting that because it seems like, it's just part of the head, which isn't part of the body. But actually, it's actually all intertwined, right? I don't know. So I applaud you.
I have a question for you, if I may. First of all, I'm so happy that you're doing this, because I know that you're relatable, right? We gravitate towards people that we can identify with, and what you see depends on where you stand. And when you're speaking to someone who has stood on your ground, you have this common ground, then they can relate to you much faster, especially when they're around your age, because you identify with them. But a question I have, and I'm not sure to whom it should go, all three of you are experts in this far better than I. In a day and age when we hear from pandemic, there's loneliness that's plaguing everyone from every age group, to social media, which makes people feel so isolated in a whole different way, and they don't know how to keep up, and they don't know they're not getting enough likes or whatever. They can't get off the dopamine rush from running through things. How do you navigate when it's not just an issue, it's an issue that's so multi-layered? How do you handle that?
Well, that's a difficult thing, because that's everybody's individual way of trying to figure it out. I mean, obviously, this is a cultural issue. It's not just one thing. It's not just technology and just media everywhere. It's when you're on your device, you're not with people, you're not outdoors, you're also not sleeping as well. You know, we have a lot of foods that aren't natural. And so those are basic blocks, but that's a very complex question. And so the way you navigate it is you start where you are, right? And you find out what you're dealing with. And so what we really tried to create was, once Kara told her story, we thought, oh my gosh, this has to exist online. And it didn't. And so we asked Kara if we create a site where kids can hear about recovery from other kids on a variety of emotional and mental health issues, would that be a good thing? And she said, absolutely, let's do it. And so as parents, when we started to navigate this, it was so difficult. We didn't know where to go. And you go on the internet and there's 1,000 different things and what's real and what isn't. And so we wanted to create this funnel where kids and people who love them can go and find somebody like them talking about their issues, and then have informational videos that are narrated by teens, and then resources so they could get to where they need to go to heal as soon as possible. And we knew what you said earlier, Melissa, teens listen best to teens, and they're online and they consume video. So it doesn't make sense to do written stories. It doesn't make sense to have adults talk to them. It's teens telling all these stories and giving the information. And so that's what we created.
And I think part of the answer to that question for you is also, it's just knowledge. Like, if people can understand, right, the algorithms, and they're being hooked in, and the way the brain works, and the dopamine, right? And so that's why we have the informational videos, because knowledge is power. And so you can't make somebody change, but you can at least give them the tools to which to make better choices. And so that's what we try to do, because you're right, it's a huge ball of wax, really, to kind of figure out.
Would you say, Kara, would you say that your recovery from whatever, from anorexia was aided by the fact that your parents had found this need, this desire for what you've created? I mean, do you think that helped you to want to be well, to be better, to let go of this anxiety about your body and this feeling of depression because of it?
Yeah, I think so. I think what it did was it helped motivate me to basically like practice what I preach, and to know that like I've come this far, and we have this organization where we're helping uplift other teens, and we have other teens who have overcome things sharing their story. And so I think it was like encouraging and inspiring. And it did really keep me like very recovery focused, because this is something I'm passionate, and this is something that I wanted to do. And in order to help others, like I have to make sure I'm helping myself first.
Absolutely. I mean, this might be too personal, but do you fall back? Did the old feelings kind of haunt you at all anymore? Or?
Yeah, I mean, recovery is not like a straight line.
Yes.
Everyone says it, and it's so true. There are still stressors and triggers. And so it's not like all of my mental health issues are something that I've like overcome and put behind me. Right. I don't think that's a super realistic thing to expect. Like, right. We're human beings. We're always going to struggle. We're always going to have issues. Mm-hmm. And, when you spend so many years like growing up, because, my mental health issues started really like first, second grade. So I kind of grew into that mindset. And so it does take a lot of effort to kind of rewire the way I think. And I have come so far that it's pretty easy, but recovery is still a choice that I make every single day.
Absolutely.
You made a really important point. You said it began in second grade. Yeah. This is a 7-8-year-old age. And I think that the majority of parents would think, oh, the teen years, we got to get ready. 10, 11, 12, they're going to start going into preteen. Now we got to have our antenna up and look for the signs. But 7, 8. And I have spoken to a kindergarten teacher who told me that some of the little girls in her class were complaining about how big they were. These are little 5-year-old girls. They were saying, I'm too big. I don't like the school uniform. It was like they had to wear skirts or something. And they didn't like it because it showed their legs. And she said, what's wrong with your legs? They're too big. And these were 5-year-old baby girls, right? And so I thank you for sharing that. That's a vulnerable point. And that's a point when I don't think most parents are thinking about it. They're thinking, how do I get the little Twitch thing out of their hands and get them back to the table so that they're engaged with the family. They're not thinking beyond what we're being told are the normal problems. So that's a really key point that you brought up. And how do you, from your expertise, how do you teach a parent to deal with anxiety when it starts so young and you don't really know what to look for? I don't think we know what to look for. We don't know what anxiety looks like, right?
Especially at that age.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm not even sure at that age they have, the language to explain what's going on. They're just feeling it. And a lot of times, in our society, we're taught to hide our feelings and not talk about them.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so,
But are there flags that the parents could pick up?
It's interesting because I think about this now, obviously,
hindsight, right.
When Kara was little and it would be bedtime, she would always want to know exactly what tomorrow was going to bring. Yeah. And so it was interesting. And I think about it now because that was a constant. It was what she always needed to be. And I see that now as, I don't know, maybe you can answer that, Kara, whether that's a control thing or feeling like you're in control. But it was, we had to just kind of go over. It wasn't a ritual thing, but I think about it now that it was, okay, what exactly, what are we doing? What's tomorrow going to be like?
Well, I love that you brought that up because my whole food issue really was about growing up in an unstable environment where I loved my family so much, but there was addiction, all kinds of things going on. And I just wanted to control my life so that I could just feel like my body was the only thing I could control, right? It was the only thing that I thought, okay, I've got this. I can control food and I control my body. I mean, I didn't know, but it started very young. I mean, I think that you bring up something very interesting. And by the way, me saying that has nothing to do. I'm not saying that you had an unstable household because, I know that some of these things they happen because Lord only knows. I mean, maybe you came into this incarnation going, I'm gonna, that this is my journey and this is what I'm gonna figure out. Sometimes it's a trauma that happens from your childhood. Sometimes it's a teacher says something strange, or a friend, or a sibling. Whatever it is, you never know what that is. So one of the things I just wanted to bring about that parents a lot of times, especially people our age, don't have any idea. They can't compute what it's like to be a young person today. Mm-hmm. We are digital adopters. We didn't grow up in a digital world. Right. They're digital natives. And they're growing up with so much information for their young brains and so much pressure and so much FOMO and so much kind of the negative comparisons that can happen on the internet. And you see other people, the Kardashians and everybody else doing wonderful things, and I'm at home. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's really important for parents to understand that what their kids' experience of the world is so vastly different than theirs. Absolutely.
And you just can't compare it. And until they really dig into some of the reasons why we have this mental health crisis, and that's a whole nother podcast.
Right. Yeah, it is.
It's very deep, but it's important for parents to go, you don't rub dirt on it. You don't, suck it up. It's a different world for these kids. And it's really, really difficult. Kara, do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure what you want me to.
Well, what is it? What is it for you to grow up in this highly digitized world? I love what you said that, we're digital adopters and they're digital natives. And it's so true. I mean, you see babies, they can scroll through things like I can't even do. So what is it like for you? Because you didn't know another way. You grew up with technology is really kind of, it's second nature to you. But can you separate from that? Do you see where it can be problematic for you?
Yeah, I mean, now that I'm older and I've just learned so much and I have a greater sense of self, like I can totally identify, like the boundaries between like real life and, picture perfect, what gets posted on social media. Yeah. But when I was growing up, when I was, 12 years old, 13 years old, I was so impressionable and I didn't know who I was. I didn't know, what to expect of myself or my peers. And so I, was really taking on things that I saw on social media. And I wasn't aware that like, what you see, what people post, that's not their life. That's their highlight reel.
Yeah.
And so I was just comparing my everyday experiences to things that other people were, were special to them and they were glamorizing. And so I felt very inferior because that was like a pattern throughout my life, as I just always had like a really deep underlying sense of inferiority. And so seeing, peers and celebrities and things on social media really reinforced that. And so I definitely would say, like growing up, when I was trying to discover who I was, I was really negatively impacted by social media.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
I want to say that thank you for what you've done. I have a nephew who has overcome addiction and is still overcoming addiction, and will from womb to tomb, he will be working on this. And he has let me know and let the family know ad nauseum, like, look, I'm still working on this. Today's a good day, but I'm still working on this. So I want to, and he's older, he's in his mid-30s, and I know had he had your resources at the time of his start of his pain, he would have fared much better than he did. And he's doing well now. Praise be. But I think that what you're doing is glorious. Thank you very much for what you've done for the community. We wish you all the best always. And we'd like to highlight you on Mariel Hemingway Foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. Melissa and I both started a foundation called the Mariel Hemingway Foundation. .org. Yes, and we're here in the same room.
We're together.
We're together, and we started it so that we could be a resource navigator. I want to be able to highlight people like yourself, so that, especially for teens, is this a hot? I meant to ask this earlier. Is this a hotline? Is this a hotline situation? No.
No, we offer hotlines. I mean, because we don't do the service. We left that to the experts. And so, yes, the teen
but
line.
you direct it. You direct it towards. Fantastic. But I just love what you're doing. I'm so honored that you would come on and talk about this. I mean, we need to have you back on because I want to ask you about being a grief recovery specialist and what grief means. But we don't have a lot of time today. And you're amazing. And I got to tell you, Jennifer, your middle name is Byra?
No, that's another person.
Jennifer Byra is the grief specialist who did the Teen Talk.
Oh, I've got you. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind. Rewind. Anyway, well, never mind. It's really great to talk to you. I really do hope that you will come back. You're all very, very special, doing very, very important work. So thank you. Thank you so much. And if anybody wants to learn more, please go to Teens4TeensHelp.org. And that's Teens4TeensHelp at Instagram, Teens4TeensHelp at Facebook, Teens4TeensHelp at LinkedIn. Please, please go there. This is an important organization doing important work in the world, and we're so grateful for all of you.
Welcome back to Out Comes the Sun. I'm Melissa Yamaguchi with Mariel Hemingway. I'm here to share with you today a tip on energy, another tip on energy. And the one I want to talk to you today is about this concept of sickness. Whenever we are sick, whether it's a common cold, whether it's a flu, whether it was the dreaded COVID, anything that's going around, when there's sickness, or if you have been you've been released from the hospital and you're at home recovering from a sickness, there are certain tips in feng shui that we really heed. And in particular, this year, which we know is the year of the rabbit, there's a couple tips that are, it's going to sound silly when I say it. You're going to think, well, isn't that a good tip always? But just listen to me. Hear me out. For the year of the rabbit, one of the things that we talk about is that's most important in feng shui is paying attention to avoiding excess carbohydrates. Yes, it's important to avoid excess carbohydrates, and all of my friends who are listening who are keto or any specific diet that abstains from this, yes, you hear me. But in particular this year, so if you say, well, I eat carbohydrates, simple and complex, this is a part of my diet, excessive. I'll say it again, avoid excessive carbohydrates. What's happening with the way energy is moving this year is that there's a stuck energy in certain times of the year where you will feel the effects of something more pronounced than you would any other time. There are certain times of the year, different energies of the year that you can eat and you will not have as much of a problem. Now I can already hear and feel people instant messaging me on my Instagram asking me about this. And what do you mean? What I mean is that the way energy moves every single year, every month, every day, every hour can affect our bodies differently from one year to the next. This year is obviously no exception. Avoid excessive carbohydrates. I talk to my clients about this. There's a few other tips that I'd like to talk to you about when it comes to sickness. Consumption, with the excessive consumption this year, it settles into areas usually around the stomach. So we watch for food that can irritate your gastric lining. Intestinal issues seem to be at the forefront of some of the potential problems this year. If you already suffer from irritable bowel syndrome or a sensitive stomach, or you're low on your healthy gut microbiomes, certainly this is not a year to poo-poo anything the doctor has said to you. Pay attention and be careful and mindful watching any food that really irritates your gastric lining. Another thing that's important in feng shui with your health this year is to really pay attention to the air quality of your home. Now, I'm really big on air filters, and there's one in particular that I have purchased that I saved up and got, and it's from Molecule, Molekule. They do a great job, but any really good quality HEPA air filter is very important to cleanse your house, and we really want to watch the air quality of your home. It's always important. And it has been, especially since we were going through COVID. I think I read that the air filter sales shot through the roof. But in particular, let's pay attention to that. Another thing that I would like for you to consider is full spectrum lighting. The reason it's so important over fluorescent lighting for sure is that full spectrum lighting mimics natural light. You can get full spectrum lighting at Staples or at any of the big warehouses or any warehouse or tool hardware store that you can go to. But full spectrum lighting is really important. I've talked about before the benefits of having natural lighting in the home. And if you don't have a window at your office space or at home, then bringing in full spectrum lighting really helps boost your health. Another little feng shui tip that we use when it comes to health is trying to have lighting that shoots upward as opposed to downward. When you have downward lighting, it becomes more oppressive. Now, in your bedroom, you may not want a light that's shooting up because you're trying to pull down for the night. But it's certainly in areas of your home where you want the energy to be a little bit higher, maybe in the kitchen or maybe in the family room where you watch TV, then bringing that lighting up is a little feng shui tip that we use often. So those are my tips for the day on how to help your house have a healthy environment when you're recovering or trying to push any potential sickness that's flying around away. Now, don't go anywhere. Please stay tuned. Coming up next, Mariel Hemingway with tips on health and balance. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Out Comes the Sun Radio. I'm Mariel Hemingway, and I'm here with my partner, Melissa Yamaguchi, and I'm going to give you a little tip on balance today. I'm going to talk about minerals and the importance of minerals. Minerals are incredibly important because, and I've talked about this in a tip before, but I'm going to tell you why minerals are so important. They help you. I mean, you've heard that they help with your bones. They help with cramping. I don't know if you know that. If you don't get enough magnesium, you will have aches and pains in your body that you don't have to have if you take minerals. Here, let me tell you a few signs that you are mineral deficient. Constipation, bloating, or abdominal pain is sometimes a reason for that. Decreased immune system, diarrhea, which is kind of counterintuitive because they just said it was constipation, but irregular heartbeat, sometimes muscle cramping, nausea and vomiting, numbness or tingling in the extremities. So these are signs that you may be mineral deficient, right? So it's always good to look at, do I take minerals? I like to put minerals in water. I like to do salt, and I've talked about this before. I like to do real salt in water first thing in the morning because we've been asleep, and that kind of turns on your electricity because we are electrical beings. So put a little salt in your water, and then everything gets turned on inside. And I do minerals. I do magnesium, calcium, magnesium at night. But there are mineral combinations that are liquid that you can put in your water, which I do throughout the day. So just remember how important minerals are, because our soil is depleted. Our food is depleted of its minerals because of the way things are grown nowadays. So just be aware that you probably need minerals, and maybe you're not sleeping as well because you're not getting minerals at night. And that would be mostly magnesium, but look to see if you're taking minerals. That's my energy tip. That's what I got for you today. So it was a great show. I'm really happy that we connected with Teens for Teens today because, my heart always just goes out to somebody who suffered as a teenager. I did have a body image issue as a child, and it would have been, I could have easily turned to, my sister was bulimic. I could have easily become anorexic when I was a teen, except I did like to eat too much. So when I thought about like only eating an apple a day, that was like, bummer. Anyway, so I never did that, but I counted calories. I did all kinds of crazy things. So I know what it's like to become obsessive about control. So I love being able to share Teens for Teens with everyone, because also, that's a teen dealing with another teen, and that makes a huge difference. If somebody my age had been able to help me when I was a kid and I was so obsessed, so my self-image as a teenager was so bad. It lasted into my 40s, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, I feel really good about myself now. It just took me a while. So anyway, that's it, Melissa. I think we have wrapped up an amazing show, and stay with us, people, because we love you so much, and we will see you again soon.
Out Comes the Sun has been a production of Evolve Entertainment. Hosts Mariel Hemingway and Melissa Yamaguchi. Executive producer Jeremiah Higgins. And sound engineer and producer Richard Dr. D. Dugan. Thank you for listening.